Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as usual, let's go over Tesla. Let's go over what the market has done today, moving into tomorrow being a pretty massive day, of course, being investor day for Tesla. So yeah, all that being said and done, let's just jump into it. The market is closing in just about 5 minutes, and it seems like Tesla will be closing somewhere around this general vicinity, which will be putting us pretty much just over $206, which is down only about 0.6 or so percent, which is not too crazy. So I mean, more or less a pretty boring day in all honesty. Nothing really too major happened, right? We did gap up in the morning, pretty much fell right from 210. I entered puts, exited them way too early, unfortunately, but nonetheless, I mean, that was the right call. Clearly just exited way too early. I'm very bad at holding options. I much prefer selling options as opposed to buying options. I don't like buying options that much because I don't like when theta is against me personally. I like it when it's more on my side. But nonetheless, all that being said though, yeah, let's talk about it. So, a pretty sideways day, right? We pretty much got, gapped up into the 210 area. Like I said, got rejected there as expected, of course, right? Could have went a little bit higher. Wouldn't be surprised if it went to 213, honestly, before the rejection happened. But nonetheless, like I said, 210, 213, that area should be a lot of supply and whatnot. A lot of resistance, and then we did see that in the morning. Fell pretty aggressively all the way down to 203, which from the peak to the trough, that was a move of 3.5%. So if you caught that, that's actually a pretty decent day trade. If you got like that, move, let's say more or less, even like 3%, even 2%, honestly, it's a pretty decent day trade on options. But nonetheless, right, so that's essentially what Tesla did do today. So, what does it mean though? Like, tomorrow's investor day, it's a big day. Like, is there room for it to rally? Is there not room for it to rally? Like, I'll tell you guys my update as well. I did actually enter a new option position just pretty much right before I started recording this. I'll explain what I did and why I did it. But yeah, so, the main thing is the fact that, nothing really changed from what I said yesterday, but we're still within this channel that we did pretty much go straight sideways for the past, I wouldn't say straight sideways, but, nothing too crazy for the past 2 days, especially today, right? More or less just going sideways for now. Pretty much most likely just waiting in anticipation for Investor Day, which is going to be interesting because Investor Day is after market close tomorrow pretty much. And I'm assuming tomorrow will be another sideways day, mainly because the market's anticipating Investor Day. So it's probably going to keep going sideways up until it almost gets to this yellow line. And then Investor Day will determine if it bounces and actually has one more rally, or if we just collapse from here and then the actual downturn, especially under 200, finally begins, right? So that's kind of the main thing that I'm personally thinking the market is waiting on. And I wouldn't be surprised if that is more or less the case. Again, who knows? We could, of course, get a run up, FOMO and whatnot into Investor Day before the market closes, because people are going to think that there's be some crazy stuff and the market's gonna, Tesla's gonna rally after Investor Day and people are gonna FOMO in. That's also a very big possibility, which explains my position I'll go over very soon that I just entered. But all that being said and done, I think the market is mainly just waiting for that day tomorrow, and I don't think there's gonna be too much, crazy stuff happening, right? So like I said, the main thing is, of course, looking at this overall channel that we are in, the two yellow lines, right? We did, of course, eventually, or at first, kind of go above this yellow line, which we had another one up here or something like this. I'm not gonna draw perfectly, but it was something like this, or maybe like this. I can't remember what I had exactly, but the point is the fact that we did, go all the way up over here, and then as we broke down the first yellow line, like I said, it's kind of a bridge, right, with this being the supports, right? The second we broke under here and we started kind of zigzagging in between the two lines, that's, a little bit on thin ice. We did barely just bounce off exactly where, it needed to, which is good. And now we're essentially doing the same thing we did here, just up here instead, right, where we're kind of going sideways. And then, the next move should be on its way pretty soon, whether it's going to be another gap up like this and we make a leg higher, or we finally get this collapse from this area and the downtrend actually truly finally begins. Like I said, there's still, of course, the bearish divergence you can see very clearly on the RSI and the 1 hour chart, right? As the stock all the way from back here, someone in the comments said that this isn't a bearish divergence because the stock isn't making higher highs while the RSI is making lower highs. Well, that's quite literally what it's doing, because if you look at the highest point on the RSI in the 1 hour, for instance, right here, you can see the highest point was at 85 back when Tesla was sitting only at 180, and since then it's been making higher or lower highs on the RSI while Tesla's been making higher highs, right? Boom, 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 right? Obviously here, it's not so much. Here it's more just straight consolidation, but as this was going up like this was already going down. So that's obviously a bearish divergence, and it's not really gotten much better since then. So just keep that in mind, right? That is still very much intact. Looking at the daily very quickly, you can see also similar concept of the bearish divergence, right? As Tesla all the way back here has been essentially, kind of potentially going higher or even like sideways and not really going too much. This has been very obviously making a bearish divergence, very obviously going downwards, right? Another thing to keep in mind as well. So that's important. Another thing is taking a look at the Bollinger Band. You can see it is once again on the daily getting very, very tight, or it's starting to get very, very tight. I got a sneeze coming, 1 second. Excuse me. All right, so you can see the Bollinger Band on the 1 hour is starting to contract, right? It is starting to show some tightness, which tells me that there's going to be an explosive move coming up relatively soon. Not as tight as something that it was over here, but it's getting very close to it. Even on the 1 hour, you can see it is overall getting pretty congested and pretty tight, right? In the 3 hour, you can see nothing too wild so far, and it is getting a little tighter and tighter over here. So there is definitely a move building up, and I think a big move is going to happen. Probably, honestly, probably not tomorrow, maybe Thursday after Investor Day, I think is where the big move will start to happen. Now, of course, as usual, when you look at Tesla, you also want to look at the market, right? And now the market itself doesn't look very good, right? Like SPY, went down back below this overall trend that it had, which I kind of want to enter SPY puts. I'll be honest, I probably will tomorrow. This yellow trend line that has bounced off several times, it bounced off even over here, then it gapped down below it, couldn't get back above. Yesterday it went above, but then it pretty much closed like right on thin ice, arguably just below. And today it tried to recover once again, and it could not once again, and setting up a not the best looking candle in the world right here for bulls, right? Definitely more of a bearish than a bullish looking candle right here for SPY. So the market itself, like the indices are not looking very, very hot, which of course can impact Tesla negatively as well. So just keep that in mind. That's very important to consider, right? So the market itself is looking, arguably bearish at the moment, right? Not looking too hot, not looking too bullish. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And the VIX was oddly enough red on a red day, which is just very strange as well to me. So the VIX could be setting up a potential little small bull flag over here. Not the best looking bull flag in the world, but nonetheless, definitely a bull flag nonetheless, potentially being formed right here, something like this, we'll say. Right, give or take. Right, so keep that in mind. This is something that I'm personally just watching out for. These are the things that I'm personally eyeballing and waiting for, and taking into account when I decide where I think the market and Tesla specifically will go next. And because things look a lot more bearish than bullish, I do think that Tesla is not favored to run up personally. However, with that being said, this is where I want to get into my position I just opened up. I did actually get a call on Tesla. You might be wondering, why the hell would you do that when you're just saying everything looks bearish, right? The main reason I did that is because, one, I personally wouldn't be surprised if there is still a little bit of a run up, honestly, potentially even as high as 213 to 215, maybe even tomorrow, or even just barely after Investor Day as maybe a giga bull trap, right? So I entered, it's only one call. Relative to my overall portfolio, it's very, very little. But I did enter that mainly so that, again, in case there's a run up into Investor Day, or even maybe a little bit after Investor Day, there's like, a quick hype run up after Investor Day, everyone's excited, and then the drop hammer finally happens. I want to play that little bit of a run up, right? Second, it helps me not have any FOMO, which is important. So you put a little cash, because I'm pretty much, even though I don't have any bearish positions on Tesla, I am still technically in a bearish position on Tesla. You know what I mean? Because I am pretty much all cash, right? I'm like 90% cash. That is technically a bearish position because I'm waiting for it to fall to buy in and to make plays, or to trade or whatever, right? To sell puts. So I'm essentially doing that so that I have at least some form of upside exposure. And if it decides to collapse from there, then it's like, I'm making a small sacrifice from that small little trade, which again is like an extremely small part of my portfolio, for it to finally drop where I actually overall want it to go to, so I can finally enter actual real positions, like big positions, right? And that's essentially the way I personally view it, right? But the main thing is just in case it has a run up that I just didn't expect fully, that I'd still have some exposure to that just in case, because sometimes with Tesla and these like hype events and whatnot, you never really know, right? People really FOMO on Tesla really hard sometimes. So I'm doing that just kind of it's almost like a hedge, if you will, to my bearish quote unquote position, which essentially is just all cash. So that's just the way I view it. That's the way I personally think. Again, that's just my opinion. Doesn't mean you have to do that. Again, remember, nothing I say in this video is financial advice. This is all just, for fun, entertainment purposes, and, make your own decisions, do your own research, all that stuff. But that's essentially the main things I'm seeing, guys. So let me know what you think down below. Very quickly looking at the daily, the 21 EMA, as you can see, we are still, of course, above it. So again, short term, technically Tesla is still bullish, right? Up until it really breaks out of this yellow trend line and 200, I would say it's personally still technically bullish. Short term, of course, up until, and I do believe this will happen though, but once this yellow trend line and the 200 breaks to the downside, which I do believe will happen, it's not if, it's more of when, that's when, you can really start getting bearish on Tesla. But as of right now, it's technically not bearish, technically, but I do think it will become bearish. I'm trying to predict that, so that's kind of the way I'm thinking about it. So yeah, all that being said, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you for tomorrow's video, which should be a pretty interesting one. Peace.